What's up, everybody? This is episode 5 of editing your photos. You guys.
Now, if you're wondering, like, Nick, what was that? That was pretty much just my reenactment of how this video came about. I've been a big fan of Peter McKinnon, and he does this series called Edit Your Photos, where he takes your raw photos and edits them in his way, in his style. Personally, I've been a fan of it and thinking, wow, like that's cool to see someone's artistic process and how they start from point A and get to point B. So I was thinking, I could probably do this with my doodled photos. Over the past couple of months, there has been just an upswing in doodleness, if that's even a word. Between my own photos I doodle on, photos I've drawn on for Chris Howe, and even Chris Howe and I's collab on how to draw on photos. I've also been having a lot of people try it on their own and tagging Chris and I and everything. It's been amazing. So going off of this momentum, it only makes sense to do this. So I made an email called I Be Doodling, where I had you guys send in your photos for me to draw on, and you guys responded. I had no idea what kind of response I would get, but we got 104 entries, which to me, that's a lot. I was expecting like maybe 20. And it was the hardest thing to pick out of the 104. Everyone sent in amazing photos, but I had to narrow it down. I don't want this video to be 3 hours long, so I cut it down to a handful of selections, and yeah, let's just dive right into it. And as a quick disclaimer, by no means am I like a professional doodler or think my way is the only way to do things. Everyone has their own style and perspective on images and drawing and everything, so the photos that I'm about to show you are just my interpretation and what I think could look cool on the photo that I was given. So please don't take my words as like, this is it, like this is the only thing, it's my way or the highway, so like get out of here. No. So these photos are just my style, so please, like I said, I'm not a professional, I'm just having fun, so just wanted to clear the air a little bit. Our first photo comes from Michael. Michael is majoring in photography and minoring in graphic design. He is obsessed with handstands, and he likes dogs more than some people. And when I first saw this photo, I was like, one, I'm very impressed, obviously, because I can't do that. But two, this is like the prime example of like space around a subject to doodle around. So I was pretty pumped about this, and like this was a no-brainer to pick this one. So right off the bat, Michael, dope photo. I love it. So the first thing I wanted to do was try to find a way I can incorporate shapes into this photo. I gravitated towards circles, and so I found different circles and I stretched them, I shrunk them, I enlarged them, and I put them all around Michael. It took me a couple tries to find the right brush stroke, but once I found the thickness of circle I liked, I just kept that for all the rest of the circles. And there's a fine line between doing too few circles and too many circles, but I think doing a couple around the leg, one around the waist, and a couple on the arms was like a great way to, give this photo balance, because I didn't want to make it too crazy with all the circles I had. Right here, I added another layer onto my drawing, because if I try to do the whole doodle on one layer, it might get a little messy when I overlap shapes and try to erase. So when in doubt, add some layers. Better safe than sorry. And I was trying to find a way to add a little bit more detail because it looked a little too boring with just circles. So I did these little dots and these little inner and outer lines that complement the circles. After I was done doodling with Adobe Draw on my iPad, I brought this into Photoshop where I made a layer mask so I can erase the parts of the circle, make it look like, it was a little shadow effect. And I also added a slight outer glow. And if you guys want to see the Photoshop process and you want to see another rendition of this doodling your photos, like maybe doodling your photos episode 2, just let me know in the comments down below and I'd be more than happy to explain my whole entire process. I just figured in the sake of time, I would leave out a few things. Before I show you the next photo, just be prepared for the overwhelming amount of cuteness. This photo was submitted by Liam, and Liam's fun facts was that he was gonna be a magician until he found photography. He taught himself how to play 6 different instruments for fun, and he was born on Halloween. Liam, those are quite the fun facts and quite adorable photo. Now, when I first see this photo, I realized that there's not really too much to work with on the background. All the focus has to be around the subject, which is totally fine. I wanted to continue using circles like I did it with the handstand photo, but now with this photo, I'm gonna use fewer circles but make them bigger and more prominent. So this first step was just trying to find which circles I wanted to use. I originally had the circle down around his legs. I was looking at it and didn't really like it. So I moved the circle back up to his body to have 2 overlapping circles around his body, which again, I used another layer. Because like I said, things get a little messy when you try to use one layer for all your doodles. And then I wanted something around his feet. I wanted another, 3D effect somewhere. I didn't want to go around his body because that would just be chaos. So I found a line just go right through his legs, and then also I went into the circles and added some more accents to the circle to make it, a little more fun, and you don't want just 2 boring circles around it. So these little details will just add a fun factor, if you will. And again, I took it in Photoshop, added a little outer glow and a slight drop shadow, and here is the final result. And I'm very pleased with how this came out, and I'm glad that I didn't take away too much from the subject because, like I said before, the subject is just adorable. Okay, this photo was taken by Taylor, and I wanted to pick a photo that wasn't just a self-portrait. There's nothing wrong with humans, obviously, but I wanted to show that you can doodle on any photo. Doesn't matter if it's a human, a building, a mailbox, you name it, you doodle it, most likely. So Taylor's fun facts is that he was #1 in Taekwondo last year in the US. Okay, I see you. That's crazy. Taylor's second fun fact is that his car has been hit by lightning when he was driving it. Another astounding fact. And then also, pit bulls are Taylor's favorite dog breed. Man, #1 in Taekwondo and your car's been hit by lightning? You might be the only person in the whole world that has that rap sheet. But let's go into the photo. My first instinct when I saw this, I wanted some big, bold, prominent doodles around the building. I wanted the building to be engulfed in doodles. Instead of using circles, I went with a square. And again, with a separate layer, I added another square on top and then simply erased part of the square to make it look like it was either going around the building or behind the building. That's the overarching theme of this whole thing, is that you erase part of the doodle to make it look like it's wrapping around a subject. So, and then you know how I don't like just boring old shapes, so I went ahead and I tried to add some doodles to the corners of all the squares, and I found that these just squiggles and then these dots made for a good fit. And then I noticed on top there's a little statue, and I noticed they could probably use some more doodles on top. So a small dot increased my brush, bigger dot increased my brush, bigger dot, bigger dot, bigger dot, until I was pleased with it. And yeah, that's the final result, and I'm pretty pumped on how it came out. Again, going to a building rather than a human subject was a good move, and I just wanted to showcase that you can draw on anything you want. As a side note, I am sorry for the changing light outside. I don't have any lights, and so I'm basing my whole video around the sun, and there's clouds that are just coming in and out. So if I get a little dark and then a little light, I apologize. It's just blame it on the sun, okay? And clouds, it's not my fault. Maybe it is my fault because I didn't get lights. Anyways, just wanted to clear the air. Okay, this next photo was submitted by Olivia. Her background is Korean, Greek, Italian, born in Sydney, Australia, and now lives in Montreal, Canada. And also, she's in several episodes of a kids show called Backyard Science. And right off the bat, this photo is just like, wow. The background is just beautiful. You just feel good looking at this photo. As you can tell, I'm kind of a big fan of using shapes. It just makes everything so much easier and cleaner and precise when you're using a shape outline. So I stretched out this circle to overlap Olivia and her sister's legs, and then once again, erased part of the circle to make it look like they were both stepping in and out of the circle. So I added some detail to the circle itself with these little squiggles and these little lines. And then I went ahead and found a triangle. And I put it smack dab in the middle of them and then erased around their heads to make it look like the triangle was, behind their heads. And then on the corners of the triangle, I added a little bit of flair, a little, if you will. And then I was thinking, cool, like this is coming along pretty well, but I kind of want something more. So I figured I might as well turn the triangle into an arrow so that a squiggly line just goes all the way down and connects to the triangle. And a little fun fact, I again added another layer so I can go past the triangle, so it's an easy erase to make a nice clean line when the line met the triangle. And then I didn't really want to do too much else because I didn't want to take away from the impressive background, so I just added a couple just accessory lines, if you will. And then once again brought it into Photoshop where I added a slight outer glow and a slight drop shadow. But yeah, this photo, super pumped with how this came out, and just want to say that all you guys are making me look good because these photos are just phenomenal to begin with. So I just feel super humbled and grateful that I even get to draw on these photos. So just thank you, Olivia, and thank you everyone else for even submitting your photos for me to draw on. Like, that is just like, I appreciate it, is what I'm trying to say. So this next photo is kind of similar to the last photo. The similarities is that the background looks cool and there are 2 people as the subject of the photo. This photo was submitted by Chris, and Chris's fun fact is that he is a perfectionist and won't post anything until he thinks it looks good. And also, he's a member of Jamaica's first ever esports team, which is pretty cool. But yeah, kind of like another easy pick because this photo is just flat out like amazing. And to your surprise, I didn't use shapes for this photo. This photo was all just freehand. I wanted to get rid of the shapes for a little bit and just try my hand at freehand. So I wanted a line that would complement the subject. It took me a little bit, but I found a nice line that would just go, you know, right through them. And again, erase parts of the line to make it look like it's wrapping around the subjects. So I did that on the chest area and also through the legs. And then of course, you want to spice things up by adding some detail. But also this photo, I didn't want to go too overboard, so a couple dots here and there and a couple lines I kind of conformed to their heads. Personally, I think was just enough to add the detail without taking away from the photo itself. When I was in Photoshop, I realized that the white doodle just blended in too much in the background, so I actually made the doodle black and added an outer glow on top of that. So this is the only photo that I used a black doodle instead of a white doodle, just because the white blended into the waves and the background colors too much. So the black lines were really distinctive and you could, you know, tell that it was wrapping in and out of the subjects. This next photo was submitted by Anastasia. Anastasia's fun facts was that English is her 3rd language and that learning the word beach in English is a little tricky, which makes sense. When Anastasia was little, she would ding-dong ditch her neighbors. Be a little rude, but that's what she did. And from her country, which is Ukraine, the word mimosa is salad. And so when she was a waitress in the States, someone asked for a mimosa, but they brought over a salad, not realizing that a mimosa in the States is like an alcoholic beverage. So she said she was pretty embarrassed, but totally understandable. So not only is this photo just like flat out pretty and, you know, you got the sunset and the palm trees and everything, but it's also the only photo that I picked that is backlit, which again, I just wanted to make sure all my photos were different and unique and that each photo had their own little characteristic that the other photos didn't. So with Anastasia, I fell back into my shapes. I picked a triangle for this one and then, yeah, erased her torso and her head away from the triangle to make it look like it was wrapping around. Sorry, I'm getting way too bright. I gotta turn down the sun. I'm telling you, it's snowing and it's sunny and it's cloudy. I don't know what's happening. And I sound like a broken record right now, but I don't like boring shapes. So I went ahead and I did like these, I guess you can kind of think of like barbed wire-esque, not with intentions to like hurt Anastasia or anything, but just make it look cool. And then adding these 2 lines, just really gives the triangle more character and more like depth of field. And these 2 lines really just add more of the 3D effect and just really adds to the shape itself. And this is the interesting point in the process where I let the photo speak to me, where, you know, Anastasia is doing something with her arms. I want to draw on a photo that's the most organic way. I was thinking about doodling around her arms, but then I didn't want to make too much chaos with the triangle that was around her body. I found a way to add detail to her fingers and just put lines around her fingers to give attention to her limbs, because a lot of attention was around her body, so I wanted to disperse some of that energy and some of that attention away to her arms. And as you could probably guess, I brought into Photoshop and added the outer glow and the drop shadow as well. And yeah, again, I am just thoroughly pleased with how this photo came out. I think the doodle again added a cool perspective to the photo itself, but thank you, Anastasia, for submitting. This next photo was taken by William. William's fun facts were that he lives in New Zealand. He started his own photography business at the age of 14, young entrepreneur, and that he stole 3 guinea pigs from the zoo. I don't know if I should have, you know, publicly stated that. William, I'm sorry, and I hope you don't get in trouble, but you did relay that information to me, so I don't know. But William sent in another beautiful photo. All you guys are sending in such good photos. It was so hard to pick all of these, but William, your photo was dope. Kind of piggybacking off of this last photo with Anastasia with her arms, you know, going out, and I added detail to that. I wanted to draw more attention to the little firework she had in her hand. It just got so dark. So with this photo, I didn't want the firework to get lost in the doodle, so I made it a point to add some lines, almost like flares to the firework, to make sure that your eye did see the firework and that was incorporated into the whole mix. The next step was to add more detail, but I didn't want to take away from the fireworks, so it took me a long time to find a nice freehand line that would go around the subject until I landed on this one, where I felt the fireworks still had its necessary space. The line was able to get erased in one part to make it look like it was wrapping around the subject. And then I didn't want to go crazy with dots or squiggly lines. I just kind of stuck with like my go-to 2 little lines around like the curves of the squiggle line. There was detail, but there wasn't like too much detail. And as expected, I brought it into Photoshop, added the outer glow and everything. So this is the final result, which I'm still happy the fireworks still has a prominent place in this photo. And yeah, again, I'm just enthused and ecstatic about the way this came out. Okay, this is the last photo, and it was submitted by Calum. And honestly, when I first saw this photo, I was just like taken away. And then to read Calum's fun facts is that he got his first camera last December. So it's been like 10 months since he's even started photography, and he's already doing these amazingly creative photos, which like, hats off, Calum. Hats off. His other fun facts is that he owns 28 pairs of Yeezys. That is a lot of Yeezys. That's almost one day a month you could wear a different pair of Yeezys. And his last fun fact is that he's a qualified accountant. You don't really hear about too many photographers and accountants. So yeah, I was pretty hyped to work on this photo, which once again, Calum, thank you for submitting. I wanted to obviously have the main focus around the floating shoe. And so I went with my freehand doodle around the shoe. It took me a few tries, but I found a doodle that I liked. And again, yeah, erased part of the line to make it look like it was wrapping around the shoe. And with all this focus around the shoe and now the doodle around the shoe, I wanted to add some doodles on the top and the bottom just to break up the attention on the photo. And so I used the shape tool to go around his fingers. You can draw as much as the shape as you want. So with the corners, I only used the corner of the shape to add like those 2 other lines. And I didn't want to go too crazy on top, and I didn't want to use another shape, so I just did a simple line and then erased it around the pinky to make it look like it was going around the pinky. And I could have added more detail, but I really didn't want to. I really didn't want to take away from the outstanding photo itself. So yeah, this is the final product, and yeah, after Photoshop, I added the outer glow once again. I think this came out really cool, and that does it for this video. If you want to see a Doodle Your Photos part 2, let me know in the comments down below, because I am bummed that I couldn't get to the other 90 people that sent in their photos for me to draw on. But yeah, I'll keep the outro super short. The sun's back and can barely see. I had a blast doing this, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be back with a new video shortly. Peace.